Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Dicko, Mole, we were just talking then off air. Team list. Wow. Talk about a schmozzle. Um, let's dive straight into one of the teams that are unfortunately the number nine, Hope. The Tigers have got no hope, do they, Molly? What do you got for us, mate?
Oh, mate, I'm just I'm just stunned. Like 6 months ago, this was the start of a bold new era for the Tigers, wasn't it? Benji, the golden boy taking over as coach. Lachlan Galvin, they've been grooming him for 5 years, taken over as playmaker. Talon De Silva, the great wide open hooker. The two of them are gone before June 30. They haven't got anyone in return. De Silva, the day after he goes, Epi Coruscant falls with a concussion. He's unavailable this week. Some kid called Tristan Hope is playing hooker. I mean, it really is a circus. And they're playing the Roosters. They've lost, I think, six in a row. I think we can do the tips now. Is anyone going to argue with seven in a row?
I
No,
don't think so. And the
no.
Roosters have got six players out, and I reckon they'll win by 30.
Yes.
That's how
Uh,
good the Tigers are going.
it really is. I feel for Tigers fans. They thought things would be different this year, and yes, they're not last at the moment, but there's still a few games to go. And the way things are going, who knows? They could keep the spoon era alive.
Well,
They
what is it?
definitely
What is it then, Molly? What do you think their plan is? Like, what's the end game for the Tigers here? Like, is there a plan? Should we say?
I just think they don't know what they're doing. I mean, why you would let your two best young players go before June 30? I don't think any club in the history of the game has ever done that and got no one in return. Like, well,
Mm.
what's the benefit for them here? They'll probably have some money to spend in a couple of years, but meanwhile they'll probably get a couple more spoons. I really feel for Tigers fans, and the remaining players must be scratching their heads thinking, what's going on here.
Mm.
Tristan Hope, I mean, he was playing Jersey flag probably a couple of weeks ago. Now all of a sudden he's the first grade hooker and up against the Roosters. It's going to be a pretty daunting debut for the kid.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going. I mean, they signed Terrell May and started the season on fire. Jerome Luai comes across from Penrith, and obviously he's out in Origin as well. He probably feels like he's let down the boys there too. But do you think it's do you think it's we've seen a few reports come out. Is there this leadership group that are making these calls along with Benji, do you think? Or
I think it's got to be the higher ups, doesn't it? Like it's been a shambles now for. I mean, you talk about the board and the coaching staff, and then you got the Tim Sheens, Benji Marshall, Robbie Farah issue.
Well, it's not just a group of mates coming together to decide who's come to the club, is it? Like there's
Well, what is the board? Like, did they can some of the board, Molly? I can't remember. Did they
Yeah,
can some?
they actually named a new board member today. I don't know how or why this happened, but the great Leo Epifania, who West fans will remember fondly from the 90s, he's on the board. And I didn't know even though there was a vacancy, but
I
apparently
thought you were going to say Hope's grandma or something.
yeah, but I mean, the board obviously there's factions. They don't know what they're doing. Rick Wade, who I rate as a smart operator, he got shown the door. He's taken legal action. I think that's still going. I think he was a bit too smart for him. So they said, "See you later." And he doesn't go quietly. Rick, he's the man who saved Western Suburbs when the old New South Wales Rugby League kicked them out. He took them the Supreme Court and bought them a few extra years before they
Mm.
eventually merged with Balmain. And the merger's never been a success. Tim Sheen's managed to squeeze a premiership out of it. God knows how, but. I'm
Mm.
hearing the Balmain people still don't like the West people. The West people still hate the Balmain people. So it's just the
All
whole
right.
club is just a mess.
Shambles.
Yeah,
Shambles.
yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think at the end of the day, the Tigers supporters and rugby league, we've got to ask ourselves, are they actually improving? Like, are they getting better? And if you would have asked me, say, 8 rounds into the season, I could see light, all right, at the end of the tunnel. But a couple of decisions, as we just spoke about, it just feels like they're just pulled the cord out from under them. They're gone backwards.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's no end game. I don't see an end game here. Like, what is it?
Well, the problem too they've got is the two, stars or future stars they've let go were on bugger all money. So it doesn't exactly free up salary cap room for them to go and purchase big.
And doesn't Jerome Luai have an option in his contract to get out too, and like at the end of this season or next season or something?
I think he's got an option at the end of every season to get it. No, true story. So
You might be taking that up sooner rather than later, I reckon.
Yeah, mate. It's just a shambles. I mean,
Well,
I don't know.
especially if
I don't know.
Benji goes.
I was a bit dumbfounded by that coaching selection in the first place, to be honest. If you're trying to rebuild and you're doing it with a rookie coach, no disrespect to Benji Marshall at all, but if you're doing it, to me, you look, the Dolphins got Wayne Bennett, startup club got Wayne Bennett, right? You're not rebuilding or building with a rookie coach, I don't think. So that was a bit dumbfounding to me.
Mm.
yeah,
Well,
I think
look at
I
where
think
the Roosters are coming in their situation. They've sort of entered this rebuild stage. They've got Trent Robinson at the helm, and they're sitting in what, fifth spot, I think.
yeah, and I think most of us, I certainly thought there was no way they'd make the 8 this year with all the players they let
No, yeah.
when they signed my mate Chad Townsend. That was basically it. I just thought they were writing this season off as a loss. But you look at the kids they brought in. Robert Toya's an Origin player. Marky's just killing it. You compare that to the Tigers, and the two teams are playing each other this weekend, as we said. So, it's just interesting to see a strong organisation up against an organisation that basically doesn't know what it's doing.
Yeah. Now, speaking of strong organisations, obviously a bit of bias here, but Penrith, Molly, and Dicko,
Mhm.
obviously being an avid Penrith supporter, I'd written them off ages ago, and I'm sure a lot of people have. They've now won 4 on the trot. That game last week against the Bulldogs was, from a lot of unbiased supporters, one of the best games of the season. What was your thoughts there, Molly? And a Penrith a genuine title threat again?
Yeah, I thought the game was played with Origin intensity, wasn't it? It was just a bash and barge affair from start to finish. And the fact you only had 2 tries in 80 minutes and one of them was a Cleary charge down just showed how strong and intense the two defences were. They just didn't give an inch for the whole way. And really, either side could have won it. And for Penrith to come out on top, it's a massive feat. And, even when they were coming last, we were all saying, they're only 2 wins out of the 8. And now, as you say, they're in 6th spot. So, yeah, they can do it again. I mean, they're as good a chance as anyone. We get all this Origin out of the way and everything gets fair income again. They get their best side in. Hopefully, Cleary stays healthy. And, who knows? 5, Pete. Big chance.
Well, here's one for you, Molly. They have their next 6 rounds are bye, Parramatta, Rabbitohs, Tigers, Titans, Knights.
Jeez, they could win the minor premiership, couldn't they?
How close the ladder is. Look, they're a definite chance of making the 4 with the Warriors in tatters. Unfortunately, Luke Metcalf with that ACL, it's absolutely devastating, because I actually think he might have won the Dally M potentially.
Yeah, he was leading the way. Cronulla's fallen apart. So yeah, all their rivals are struggling. Melbourne's not, the Melbourne we used to. They put on some good showings, but then they put on some ordinary ones. I think Origin and the loss of some players has hurt them. They're not quite what they were. So, I think the two teams that played the other night we were talking about a minute ago, the Bulldogs and the Panthers, they could easily fight out this grand final. And, that was a little preview of what's to come.
It's
Yeah.
a really interesting sort of makeup in terms of, like, I think there's no doubt. Like, I always felt that if they make the 8, they're going to be probably one of the teams to beat, because they're that experienced and that good in big games that you let's face it, if you're drawn up against them in the 8, you're probably not going to want to play them. So I reckon they've also been helped by the ladder as well in terms of how close the competition is. Like because if you think of it now, like South's the second last, but they're 2 wins out of the 8, right? So if you go on a little skid, a 2 or no, Cronulla, for instance, you go on a skid, they find themselves in 10th. Broncos have won what 3 or 4 in a row. They're now up to 5th. So you get some games together here in this next sort of 8 rounds. You can either drop right down out of contention, or you can find yourself up pushing for probably the 4th position. I don't think Melbourne, Canterbury, or Canberra can be caught in the top 3. How that top 3 make up, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's really interesting. It's fascinating, and I thought it was a really good game of footy. I agree with you in terms of the intensity, and they belted the shit out of each other. Really, if I'm a little bit critical of the Dogs, I thought they were very side to side. They scored. They opened them up pretty easily in the first half through the middle, and why they went away from that, I didn't think they threw a lot at Penrith there in the second half. It was more going set for set, and then it just takes 1 or 2 opportunities for someone to grab, and and they did, and that's what the good teams do. They'll hang in there even though they're not playing the best. Yeah, they just hang in there, mate, and wait for someone to make a mistake.
Panic, but they tried to score off every play. I think Serraldo was saying.
Yeah, and it was side to side. Like it wasn't. I've said this for many years. You are not going to run around the side of Penrith. I'm sorry, you can just forget about it. You're only going to win going up the middle. And they opened them up in the first half, and then they went away from that. Why, I don't know. They dropped a bit of footy, but I also think the Bulldogs have shot themselves in the foot. For the life of me, I don't. This whole Galvin signing and where he's playing on the bench. I made a comment on the weekend to you, Dizz, that I thought the whole game changed when Galvin came on the field. He missed a tackle on Cleary, who ran away. That led to field position, which led ultimately to the match-winning try. And I just didn't. They all just look lost out there with it. There's too many ball players. Like
I just can't fathom having Sexton at hooker. It makes no sense.
Well, Reid Marnie he's a tackling machine. He makes 50 tackles a game, and he mops up the middle. Yeah, he mops up the middle. Like he makes a lot of those, tackles that you'd sort of go unheralded. And I don't know that situation and why they would, move Sexton to hooker and then him off the field. And I've heard he's filthy with it. I don't know what you know, Molly, but I've heard that Marnie's absolutely filthy. Hence why I think, the money's probably on him ending up at the Cowboys at the end of the season. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Bulldogs have potentially shot themselves in the foot with this Galvin. They've got to work out whether he's in this. I don't think he can play off the bench.
Well, he's just been named on the bench again.
Yeah. So to me, it just doesn't make sense. But I'm just somebody that's sitting neutrally looking at it. But if I was a Bulldog supporter, I'd be a bit concerned because I said it on the podcast last week. I thought it was a big game for them to make a statement, and I don't think they did. They missed an opportunity. This is what I think, anyway.
Yeah. Look, yeah. I don't know where this leaves the Bulldogs. After that game, they're definitely going to make the top 4. But yeah, I guess that was an opportunity, coming of age game, and I think what got me, being a Penrith fan as well, was Stephen Crichton, their leader, was probably the one that forced his hand too much, when really he's the one that stays kind of cool in those situations. Not cool because he's a fiery sort of character and upbeat, communicative amongst his squad, but he normally got the right.
He got rattled by the kid, mate. Is what he got. He got rattled by the kid.
That's a coming of age. Casey McLean. Wow.
Because if you think about it, that was Casey McLean was Stephen Crichton 3 years ago, getting up in people's faces, right? And I think he got rattled, and it's how Penrith play. And good on them. I mean, they're going to be there. If there's any team, what I will say, if there's any team that can win the comp outside of the 4 in the NRL era, it'll be Penrith.
Molly, you mentioned the Storm aren't at their best. I tell you what they are good at: blatant infringements. That's what they're good at. Dicko and we've had a gripe on this for some time, and we actually said on the podcast that there should be a more extreme punishment for those who do blatant infringements or these scrum penalties.
Oh,
on purpose, holding down 6 agains.
Yeah, they've perfected it, haven't they? They're very clever at what they do, and I think the refs are too scared of Bellamy to
but just
start betting blokes.
I'd love to see a stat because Ashley Klein, funnily enough, was reffing the game. The Storm
Do
were
we
in.
have to talk about him?
No,
He's
we won't.
just
We
been
won't talk
given
about him.
Origin 3, which surprised no one. But the Blues aren't happy, and if it's 8-0 again at half time, I think people will be throwing things
I
at the.
guarantee you, mate, it'll be 8-0 to New South Wales is what'll happen.
Here's the question, though.
I think you're very close to the mark. Actually, I think there'll be a backflip by Klein.
Absolutely.
If Klein wasn't reffing that Storm game and it was an upcoming referee who has a point to prove, does he sin bin some of those Storm players at those times, and equally so for some of these scrum penalties, or is it not allowed?
Well, for those that didn't watch the game, there was a sequence of it was before the Farlongo runaway try when Hines went to bat it on.
Try. Yeah.
Pre the second try, there was a sequence of about what felt like about 5 or 6 sets of 6 Melbourne were defending, and in that time they gave away 3 6 agains and 2 penalties. In that time, in that short space.
No warning?
There was no warning by the referee and there was no sin bin. And that ultimately then led to them chancing their hand in Farlongo. Now, good on Melbourne for getting away with it, let's just say firstly.
Surprise, the person who threw the pass was Hines.
But seriously, that's just blatant infringement. And that's what frustrates me as somebody, and I don't go for either of these teams. So it frustrates me as a spectator watching it because I thought to myself, okay, what if that was West Tigers defending that same sequence or the Gold Coast Titans defending that same sequence? I guarantee you, one of them would have went to the sin bin. And that's what ultimately frustrates me. And I'm sure you agree. Yeah.
And momentum shifts and then very hard to peg back.
And I'm sure you guys agree with me. It just really frustrates me as a fan that the referees just don't get a feel for it. And you got some of the bigger teams, the teams that are up higher on the ladder. I understand they're going to get the rub of the green because where they sit, and I don't have an issue with that. But when it's blatant like that, like the blatant penalties, I can't get behind that. It really annoys me as a fan. And then the scrum issue is a huge thing. Have you noticed that, Molly, the last few weeks where teams are giving away penalties packing the scrum so that they have then a set defensive line?
Yeah, because they can't take the 2.
Well, you can't take the 2 and you can't re-scrum either. It's got to be a tap.
Yeah.
So Andrew Voss is fuming on radio
about it.
Well,
they do say the easiest place to defend is when you're defending your own line.
Well, you think about it as well. You take out, let's just think about it here. You'll take out a Reece Walsh. You take out a Ryan Pappenhausen out of a one-on-one situation, right? And all the great fullbacks and the halves. You take their running game out, giving away the penalty at the scrum because then you get a set defensive line and it's not a genuine one-on-one. So it's something needs to happen there. Whether you re-scrum it, or they give them an option, or whether you just bin the captain. Just bin the captain.
I was going to say,
even with the blatant infringements, they need to have like a 3-strike rule. If you give away 3 6 agains in a row on your own line, it's automatic sin bin for that third person.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
Unless it's the Storm or the Panthers or the Broncos.
Turn it up.
Here we go.
But really, the NRL should be on top of this. Like, this is a trend that you guys have noticed and other people have too. If you give away a blatant professional foul, which that is from the scrum, sin bin the bloke, as you said.
So that is, you're right, Molly. Actually, I didn't think of it like that until you just said that. It's a professional foul. Like, that is a genuine, it's not foul play, but it's a professional infringement.
Yeah.
You're not packing the scrum in time just so you can set your defensive line. This is why we need a 5-minute
same where there's this rule, and I actually mentioned a couple of times last year, Dicko, only because it happened to Penrith on a couple of occasions. But say there's a break downfield, right? And it actually happened with Scott Drinkwater the other night. He made a break, and fortunately they scored off it, the Cowboys. But the Titans player held him down on purpose, knowing he wasn't get sent to the bin, and it was just going to be a 6 again.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, I don't know. There needs to be professional fair. I don't know whether the refs need to grow some balls or whether they've been instructed to do it that way. I don't know what it is. Like, there just needs to be something because it is, yeah. And I don't know. Like, we need an answer from the referees or the NRL. Like, are they not allowed to sin bin anymore? Like,
Well, what you don't want to see is the showpiece event on Wednesday night, and then for Queensland and/or New South Wales to be purposely giving away time penalties on scrums to take the best players, to take Hammer out of the game, for instance, or to take, Nathan Cleary or Jerome Luai's running game out of the game. You don't want to see that. That's what we don't want.
will you watch how many given Klein's the ref? And it didn't happen too much in game 1 or 2.
Molly loves
Because
Ash.
game 1 was lopsided, but game 2, Queensland obviously went away and it was, sort of a tale of two halves.
Yeah.
But this one I feel like is going to be relatively close the whole game. And maybe, before we do a proper preview, I'm sort of leaning towards New South Wales having an upper edge here, purely based on class. But I'm keen to take note of how many 6 agains there are on when teams are defending their own line. I reckon there'll be that many. It's not funny.
Yeah, you're right. And so that is then something to be looked at probably at the end of the season, because we don't want to be changing rules.
Yeah.
Now, but that's definitely something to be looked at, I think. Yeah,
we also do change them every week, the interpretations, don't we? I mean,
well, yeah.
It wasn't that long ago, blokes were going to the bin every time they slap someone in the face. So, things are changing. The game's just going up and down and all over the place, and they're reacting to social media and mainstream media, and it's a mess. I actually feel sorry for the refs because they're the meat in the sandwich, and they really don't know what to do. And like Klein is just going to be under so much pressure and scrutiny on Wednesday night, and as you said, Dicko, there's every chance the penalties will be 8-0 to New South Wales, and he'll figure, well, that'll square things up. They won't be able to bag me anymore.
Yeah, which you don't want. I mean, you want him to just ref the game, regardless of what the penalty count is. Queensland might be
the best team to win.
Well, and you just want a good game of footy. Queensland might be ridiculously, they might give away a lot of penalties, and that's okay. But if they're warranted, I got no issue with it, with a penalty count 8-0. If they're warranted penalties, I got no issue with it. Whether it's Queensland or New South Wales. It's best team win.
That's where I got to disagree with you. When it's 8-0, he's only looking at one team, or he's looking at one team more closely than the other, because you can award a penalty just about any play the ball.
Yeah, true.
Offside, laying in the ruck, whatever.
And let's not get started on play the balls.
For Queensland to be perfect for over 40 minutes in that game, it's just ridiculous. And New South Wales were basically shut out of it.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Origin, we're going to discuss the teams, but just want to give a shout out to our major sponsor, Gripstar. We've got another Origin giveaway. So put in your first try score again. I can't remember who got it in game 1, but Brian To'o got it in game 2. I'm pretty sure in game 1 it was actually Zach Lomax. So To'o got the second. So can another New South Wales winger make it a third? Get your comments in when we put up the post next week, and use our code Nostra30 at checkout to get a 30% discount. Now, guys, Origin teams. Molly, I know your opinion already on this, but should Laurie Daly have made some changes?
Yes. I mean, he lost the game. He was hot favourite to win. We're down to the decider, and we don't have the best 17 players in the New South Wales team. Big Stefano, as far as I'm concerned, is not an Origin player. Max King, as far as I'm concerned, is a good, solid first grader. Might be an Origin player in a year or two, but Kolomatange from South, who admittedly didn't play all that well this weekend, but other weekend has killed him. And Terrell May, I don't know what he's done wrong. He's obviously been a bad boy somewhere, because the Roosters got rid of him. No one else will touch him apart from the Tigers. He can't get a look in New South Wales, even though he's killing it. But I would have those two there. And I think, Dicko, it's fair to say Queensland wouldn't want them there, and that's why you picked them.
Yeah. I thought there'd be changes for New South Wales. I really did. I can understand why he's gone with the same 17 though. But I did think they lacked a little bit without sort of Mitch Barnett and that in that second game with King and I mean, if I'm honest, I don't particularly have great raps on Utai Kamano as it is. I couldn't believe Melbourne paid all that money for him, but New South Wales, they're still going to be tough to beat. I think there's a Penrith playing this week.
No.
No, I was going to say, if they were playing and Lindsay Smith didn't play this week, you can be guaranteed that he'd be playing. Because Brian Toto surely cannot play.
Well, he's torn his LCL. I don't know how he's even.
Well, he's a grade 2 test, so it's only partially torn. But yeah, Moley, surely, do you know anything to do with that? Surely he can't play.
Well, he's been named and he's training with them. I'd say there's a shadow there, isn't there?
He was actually the first to attend media day as well.
Mm.
And I heard today that Zach Lomax will kick for goal, so Cleary won't kick again, still hampered by that groin. Clearly not enough to miss the game, but that's another, because they're goal kicking. I think they're
a little bit of a flaw in this Origin system, though. This is a bit left field. Just thinking about it now, obviously Kolomatangi's been left out of the complete squad. Let's say, for instance, a forward goes down. Are they really picking Lindsay Smith, or can they just pick anyone?
No, they've got to pick out of the squad, don't they, Molly? I'm pretty sure.
I think up until a couple of days before the game, they can just pull someone in.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, I think so.
What's the point of naming reserves then?
So let's look at the Queensland team as an example, right? Let's say a half goes down. What, they can't put in Walsh, Hopgood, or Kerr. What do?
No, well, don't forget in game 2, Moses was out late. And then Luai came in from outside of the extended squad. Yeah, so that can be. Yeah, I always thought that couldn't be done. Otherwise, what's the point of naming 20?
That's what I mean.
I don't understand.
Well, I was shocked when Hopgood and Kerr got named. I was thinking to myself, hang on. How on earth, in anyone's world, is Hopgood and Kerr ahead of Horsburgh? Like, let alone the Papali'i selection, which we'll get onto in a second. But it's purely because there's a flaw in the system that they can just pluck from anywhere. So it doesn't matter who's number 19 or 20. Realistically, it does. They could still pick Horsburgh for all.
Well, you know what it is. It'll be Canberra play this week, and those reserves, Parramatta don't play. Yeah. And the Dolphins.
I don't want you to miss training again, mate.
And the Dolphins don't play. So they've gone. Well, they've gone Hopgood and Kerr. Who cares whether they're in the squad, because they're not playing this week anyway.
Yeah.
And the same with Newcastle, Best, and Penrith. Yeah, so that's why they've done that. It doesn't. That's a flaw. That's just. Yeah, that's just stupid. That doesn't make any sense.
And the 18-man situation. I know that you're not a fan, Dicko.
Oh, look, I mean, it is what it is. But I don't understand. Like the 18th man. If we look across in the last however many seasons it's been since you've been able to activate an 18th man, how many times that 18th man actually got on the field? All right. I don't know the stat for that, but surely to alleviate this 18th man, the Bulldogs have been hammered this whole series with Burton and now potentially Carraz. Surely the 18th man can be released, go and play the club game, come back into camp and still be 18th man. Surely.
Yeah, I agree with that. The likelihood of him getting on the field, and if he does get on, he'll probably get 5 minutes. Worst comes to worst, if the 18th man gets hurt on club duty, pick another 18th man.
Out of your squad. That should then have to be picked out of the reserves, right? Not just any old pleb from wherever. That should be out of the reserves, I think. So that's a way they could get around that. I just think we're robbing a really good game of footy on Friday night. What is it? 1v5 from one of the best wingers in the comp and one of the best fullbacks in the comp. So that game's going to be poorer for it. And it comes into this whole Origin situation. Molly said it before we jumped on and started recording, that it was just who really cares about this period during Origin, because, it's almost a 6-week break for some teams. We have a break, reset, and we'll go again.
Yeah. So is it time for the NRL to move? just standalone Origin games.
Well,
Yeah,
I think it is.
well,
You
remember,
just have a
guys.
3-week break and just go bang, bang, bang.
Remember, guys. I think it was the COVID year. We played the 3 Origins at the end of the season, and that worked out fine. We had an uninterrupted season, apart from when COVID stopped things for a few weeks, and we played the Origin at the end. I think everyone was pretty happy with that. So there's got to be another way.
So I think, and we could go down a massive rabbit hole here, and I'm sure we'll talk about this at another time. But I think the amount of rounds there are now should be the duration of the season. So the grand final should be the 27th game of the season, right? 27th round, effectively, or the 27th week. And then that would allow you then to have a 3-week break in the middle of the season where clubs can then, because the season's that grueling, you're allowing players that 3 weeks. They'll still train, but you allow them to refresh and then go again. And then you can have your Origin guys, you play your Origins, bang, 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 done, see you later. They're in camp for 3 weeks, and then we go back to club footy, is what I think should happen. I think we're at that time now as a game, personally.
Yeah, and you throw in the women's Origin, you throw in some Pacific Island games.
There's enough footy there, isn't there, Molly? There's
Yeah.
going to be enough footy to fill Channel 9 and Fox Footy and Fox League or whatever they are, in terms of games. But
Well, there was 17 injuries on the weekend. 17 injuries on the weekend.
Yeah,
So you mentioned grueling.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Like,
right.
look,
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
several of them aren't just for this season. I saw a report from NRL Physio that Luke Metcalf probably won't be fit for the start of next season because it's the same knee that he had a recon on a couple of years ago. So,
Yep.
the punishment these blokes go through, we should never underestimate it. And I think they'd appreciate a break. I think it'd be good for player welfare. And I think the fans wouldn't mind a little bit of a break because if you're a Tigers fan and you're watching them, or a Titans fan just copping it every weekend, might be nice to have a weekend where we can say, my team's not going to lose this week. And then you come back with renewed enthusiasm.
But I think the two examples we can use and the NRL can sort of look at is the Walsh Carraz, the game Friday night robbed, and then the situation the Panthers found themselves in a couple of weeks ago where their players couldn't even get to friggin' New Zealand to play.
Well, the beauty is, like, if
So,
it's mid-season, you just name Origin squads at that time, and the rest of the players train as per usual at their normal clubs.
Players get time to get over injuries. I don't see an issue with it. And as Molly said, then you allow 1 or 2 weekends over that 3-week period for then your Pacific Island test. You get games in PNG, Tonga, Samoa.
Vegas again.
Yeah, I don't know how the situation would work with like some of the Stephen Crichtons and the Luais doubling up playing for New South Wales and Samoa, but that's something that obviously the game would have to address with that.
I think you make it like a Colts game, the up and comers. So you don't have these guys doubling up. The Stephen Crichton plays enough footy over the season.
Or play a 3-game under-19 series, Molly. I really enjoyed that under-19 game the other week.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I got no issue with that. You know what I mean? Molly, what do you think about Queensland's team, mate? Some huge. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts here. I've got some good thoughts. I know Dizz. What do you reckon, Molly?
Yeah, I would have had Horsburgh ahead of Papali'i. I think Big Papa knows he's getting near the end. I mean, he's pulled up stumps at the Raiders. I think that's a pretty sure sign that at 32 his body's not what it was. I like Shibasaki in the centres. I actually had a chat with Madge about him in the preseason, and he virtually said I was going to cut him, and I was going to cut him, and I just couldn't cut him because he just kept turning up, kept playing well, and because I remember he was just blitzing it in the preseason, and we had this long chat about him, and he said he's just one of these blokes refuses to go away, and if we'd dared to say then he would have been playing Origin, but people would have thrown stuff at us. But for him to come in for the deciding Origin game, it's a great story. And I spoke to Terry Campese, was his coach at the Townsville Blackhawks last year when no one wanted him, and he said he'd be in Japan now, but his missus had a baby started last year, and they said, "No, we don't want to uproot the baby and go to another country. And that's the only reason he's playing Origin. So it's a fantastic story. And hopefully he comes out and kills them on Wednesday night.
So I listened to him today. He was interviewed today, actually, and it's funny you should say that, Molly, about preseason. He actually was kicked off the field on the first session of preseason because he was too unfit. They actually kicked him out. He couldn't finish the session.
Yeah.
And then he gradually, it's
Well, he signed $1,000 a week contract.
so he's still on a development deal. So he's not a top 30 player actually at Brisbane. So he's on 80K, which is about 1,500 a week. And he actually said in his interview today that he would have been quite happy just biding his trade for the Blackhawks and working. But a few of the Bronx boys last season went up, played a game in North Queensland and Townsville, and he's really close with Paddy Carrigan, who had a word to him and said, mate, just come down and give it another crack. And he wasn't sure about the NRL grind, whether he was up for it, but he decided to come down. I think he was staying with Paddy at the time and rang up Wynnum, yeah. So and he got a shot.
They actually played together during his last stint at the Broncos, which was 4 or 5 years ago, because this guy's been in and out of clubs left,
They
right.
came through 20s together, Molly. They came through the 20s system, yeah.
And Madge told me that Carrigan said to him, this kid can play. And that was one of the big factors in him deciding to give him a crack, because otherwise he probably wouldn't even have got the train and trial, because you can imagine how many players the Broncos have knocking on their door. Yeah. And here's a guy who's, been kicked out of about 6 clubs, suddenly getting a start and making the most.
Kudos to him. He's definitely earned this spot.
Oh, 100%. Mate, I watched him on the weekend. I was there at the Warriors-Broncos game, and dead set, Queensland have been crying out for a centre since GI that's big and fast and agile, and for someone that can sort of...
Who can tackle and run.
Yeah, and go toe-to-toe with your big bodies in Crichtons and or Latrells, whoever he marks up. And he's a genuine left centre. He was... Against the Warriors on the weekend, he was almost untackleable. I think he ended up with about 13 or 14 tackle busts and about 50 or 60 post-contact meters. So, he's averaging over 100 meters a game. And I was thinking about it today, actually. And if someone asked me, and again, I'm trying to take my bias hat off, but if someone asked me who's the top 5 most informed centers right now in the competition, I reckon he's in the 5. Yep. I reckon in form right now. I think he's 3rd on the try scorer list for most tries in the season. I know Hammer's now run away with it pretty much.
Well, he hasn't just done it over a couple of weeks either. He's been killing it nearly every single week.
Well, he's been more consistent for Brisbane than Contoni Staggs over this season.
Better than Robert Toya.
Yeah.
I'll just come out and say it.
Yeah, so I'm happy and I'm glad. I thought the second game they almost should have picked him in the second game after the game against the Bulldogs. I thought he was outstanding in Brisbane in the wet, but yeah, I'm really happy I hope the Broncos can keep him. That's the only problem.
He could do a job at second row, surely.
Oh, I think he could play just about anywhere, mate. He's a unit. He's massive, and I'm really excited to see how he goes. Like he's as he said today. He's played against both of them. He's marked up against both of them. So I don't think he's going to be overawed by the situation. He's just got to go out there and do his job. And that's what Billy, if anyone, is going to just, reiterate to him that it's all he needs to do. All he needs to do is make his tackles. He doesn't have to come up with the big plays.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about Papali'i 2.0 in a second, but another good news story that I just want to bring up, Mark Hughes Foundation on the weekend, 3.5 million.
Got my bean. Yeah, got my beanie.
Unbelievable work by all the clubs involved. It, like every single game, it was all about that. At the start of the games, in the interviews, all the players running out in beanies.
And the coaches wearing those beanies, a couple of them thought they were going to pop off their heads when they were watching the game. So getting so aggro, but they kept them on for the 80 minutes and it was great to see. Yeah, it's a very special round for our game and really shows the league family at its best.
Yeah. Now Papali'i, look, I'll have my 2 bobs worth in a second on this one.
Yeah.
Molly, from a New South Wales supporters perspective, what do you think of the Papali'i selection?
I think it's an emotional one, isn't it? It's going back to a guy who's giving great service, who everyone loves. But I don't think the Blues are going to be all that worried by him. And, it could blow up in Queensland's face because, as I said, he's past his best. When a player comes out and says, I'm going off to England at the end of the year, he's not doing it because he wants to see the north of England. He's doing it because he knows he's on his last legs and can't compete in the NRL anymore at the elite level. So strange selection, particularly the way, as we said earlier, Horsburgh's just been killing it, and he's got that fiery temperament that's just made for Origin.
I like it. I do. What I will say though is, if this decider was in Brisbane, Corey Horsburgh, I think, plays. All right. So I think they've selected this on the fact that Big Puppy has played a decider in Sydney. He's played in big games in Origin in Sydney. So for experience, he's not going to be overawed by the situation. I think that's why they've gone with him. I also don't think, if anyone thinks he's going out there to make 30 tackles and run for 150 meters, they're kidding themselves. They're kidding themselves. Seriously. He's going out there to belt as many blokes as he can for about 25 minutes, and then he's not going to be seen again on the field. And the other question we should ask ourselves is he going to put out a better performance than what Fodawaker has the last two games? And I think I can answer by saying that I think he will. Right? So I actually don't mind it.
To not beat Fodawaker because he's embarrassing.
Well, that's right,
Be
and
nice,
that's why.
be nice.
But I am right, Molly. I think I think Horsburgh should be in the team in the 17 somewhere. So I'm not overly happy with him not playing at all in this series. So I get what you're saying completely, but I just think he's selected for this, just the 30-minute bashathon, and then your Carrigan come. Paddy Carrigan played 33 minutes in that game too. Do we think that Paddy Carrigan's going to play 33 minutes in an Origin decider? I don't think so. I'd be very surprised if he only plays 33 minutes. So that's what I sort of think that Tino and Paddy are going to play long minutes, and they're going to use Lindsay Collins and Josh Papali as real impact players, is how I think Billy's going to go about this.
Well, credit where credit's due to Billy, first and foremost, right? He has been under immense pressure. He's probably said things out of line, as we know, during the series. He's made some bold selection calls, and he's put everything on the table. He's literally changed every unperforming or underperforming part of Queensland's side and tried to rectify it immediately, rather than, worrying about, outside noise, media pressure, this pick and stick rubbish that people are going on about. There's no other state more loyal than Queensland, and no one can debate that. Whereas Laurie Daly sort of probably should have changed the side, and hasn't either. Now, will that come to, bite him on the backside? We're about to find out. I just hope that, and I was interested to hear your reaction, Molly. I hope that Billy has made this selection call to fire up Queensland, as opposed to throw an intimidation factor towards New South Wales. Because quite frankly, I don't think New South Wales give a shit that he's...
No, there's not going to be any intimidation. That's rubbish. There's not going to be any intimidation.
But what message does that send to upcoming players like Horsburgh, who realistically should be picked here, who has been overlooked for a player 2 years retired?
I dare say they've been spoken to. Well, they will be spoken to. No, from what we know about Billy Slater, he leaves no box unchecked. So he's definitely spoken to the players, and there's obviously something in Horsburgh's game that he's just not that he's not happy with it. He's just concerned about it at the next level, I think. And what that is, I'm sure he's told Corey himself.
Yeah. Well, I think we know what it is, don't we? He can lose the plot.
It's a loose cannon. Yeah, the loose cannonness. Yeah.
And in an Origin decider, you don't want a bloke sin binned or sent off. And And you can bet that if he played, the Blues would have niggled him and would have got in his face, and he might not have handled it very well, particularly in Sydney, as you say. It's a fair point you make about Big Josh.
Well, he hasn't lost the plot this year, right? So
No, but I just think, as I said, I just think if this is a game in Brisbane, decider, he plays. And Josh Papali, we're not even talking about Josh Papali'i.
what about the hammer call? Like that's probably the other real weird.
Molly's the New South Wales supporter out of both of us. He can tell. Who would you rather see, Molly? Would you
I
rather
can't
see
believe
Hammer,
he's
Hammer or Walsh at fullback?
I think Hammer is just playing out of his skin. I mean, he scored 4 tries last weekend and never got out of a trot, and that was supposed to be a close game, So yeah, he's one player New South Wales will be fearing. They've just got to, their kick chase has just got to be sensational, and they just can't afford to give him any room to move. But it's easier said than done with the class of the Hammer, because all he needs is half a metre and he's away.
Yeah, I personally, I would have picked Walsh. Well, I don't know, actually. He's on one leg, so I don't know. But I just think he offers a little bit more as a passing option than what the Hammer does. You're right, Hammer's running game is class. Absolutely, last couple of weeks. His support play is the best in the comp. So they're going to be lethal with that. But he's just that the passing game that Ponga and Walsh can provide from nothing, Queensland lose by having Hammer at fullback is what I think.
I hope Hammer proves the doubters wrong. I'm one of those doubters. In fact, a massive doubter I think this could actually cost Queensland the game. Hammer at fullback, because he is elite at club level, but so was Nico Hines at one point. and I'm just calling a spade here. I don't think I've seen Hammer, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I haven't seen Hammer dominated Origin level ever.
No, I think you might be right. I'm
And
trying to think.
when
He's played a lot of centre though.
Yeah, a lot of centre out of position. Like he's in his position.
Well,
I hope he proves the doubters wrong. But
he's playing his third Origin of the series in 3 different positions, which apparently has never been done before in history. So it's
Oh, really? I didn't even think. Yeah,
tough ask for the guy who's really not that experienced in the NRL. I mean, 3 years ago we didn't know who he was, and now he's one of the game's glamour boys. But
the 3 biggest things that you need in Origin as a fullback, you would think would be communication. I don't know how good of a communicator he is. From what I see, it's just raw natural ability, stop him from getting open space. You're not going to get that in Origin.
he is going to get considerably more space at fullback than what he has at centre and on the wing.
Yeah, 100%. But what's he gonna do there? Like, is it, we're not playing against plebs week in, week out, no offense. But some of the players, look like they're running on a treadmill against him. It's not going to look like that in the Origin arena. It's just simply not. I just hope it doesn't come back to bite them.
It's a great opportunity for him. Like it's his preferred position. He's got to take it now.
I'll tell you what, if here's a question for you. If New South Wales come out and dominate Origin, is Hammer all of a sudden out of the Origin picture? I'm jumping to conclusions here, but is Walsh straight back in next year?
Well, that'll just long time.
Well, it depends how he goes, isn't it? He might have a shocker, then he's going to have the red felt pen through him, but he might score a try, go okay, defend okay under the high ball, and earn his spot.
Reece Walsh is on one leg as well, still.
Yeah, and we mentioned Walsh's passing game, and that is a good point. His passing game superior, but also you watch Reece Walsh over 80 minutes, 1 or 2 of his passes every game goes to the touch judge. And in Origin, that can be fatal, where there's less mistakes, the class of the players is higher. You won't see the Blues do that. So
he's got errors in him for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
I get that.
And to be fair, Dylan Edwards doesn't have the greatest passing game either. And
that's right. You are right. Yeah.
So anyway, maybe I'll eat my words in game 3. Hopefully, as a Queensland fan, we'll see how we go. Now, guys, we're talking about June 30 mid-season transfers. Obviously, the Talon De Silva situation. I'll just run through a couple other ones for those who have missed it. Jacob Arthur's deal actually did go through. It wasn't going to go through, and then it eventually did. So he's gone to Newcastle. Paul Bryan, young guy, I think he came on. I think he played against Penrith and dislocated his shoulder in the first tackle on debut and played the rest of the game. He's gone to Manly the other way. And the Knights actually blocked a bid for Manly to sign Jack Hetherington too, which sort of went unnoticed, which would have been interesting because Manly are in dire straits in terms of back rowers at the moment. When you've got Corey Riddell and Ben Trebojevic as your two starting back rowers, it's not the greatest, combination in the world going around.
I think Manly have got more issues than back rowers, mate, to be honest with you. But anyway.
Well, you're not wrong. Tom Rodwell, he joined his brother Toby in the top 30 at the Roosters. So it makes even more sense. They've signed DCE, which still hasn't been announced. I still don't get that signing. But anyway, Junior Tupou has gone to the Roosters as well, from the Dolphins. That was supposedly to free up salary cap room to get Cobbo across before June 30, and the Broncos blocked that. So, yeah, interesting scenario there. But they're sort of the main ones to come out. You guys got anything else to add on those sort of transfers or any other goss?
No, I got nothing.
No, I think you've just about covered it, and it's good. It's over with. The speculation's over with, and come next Wednesday, Origin's over with, and we head for the finish line, and there's less distractions, and plenty of teams can win it. We got a great comp, and
absolutely,
yeah. This original period always clouds it, and it gives me the shits, quite frankly, when we have the caliber of players that are going to be missing this weekend, and teams winning games that they probably don't deserve to win because the other team's got 6 quality players out. That'll be over, and we get down to what it's all about, which is the grand final and the final series.
Exactly right. Now, Molly, the period you don't care about, let's quickly run through our predictions before we wrap up this weekend's games. In the battle of the Q Cup versus New South Wales Cup, Bulldogs versus Broncos, who do we think's going to get the chocolates there, gents? Obviously, with all those players out.
Toss a coin.
Toss a coin? I don't know which side's more depleted. I mean, I'm looking at the sides on paper here, and they look relatively even, to be honest. The odds certainly don't.
The Broncos bench is appalling. They've got no front rower, so I'm.
That's true.
They've got to play in Sydney. I think it'll be closer than what people think, but I think the Bulldogs will win this because I don't think they're happy with. I reckon they would have got a right royal spray from last week, and I just think the Bulldogs need this. And this is funny to say this actually, the Bulldogs need this win more than Brisbane.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Broncos have lost more than the Bulldogs have lost, and in Sydney, Bulldogs.
Yep. Now, Raiders versus Dragons. The Dragons had 7 injuries from that game, by the way, on the weekend. I'm surprised they're able to field a team this weekend. And on paper, it actually looks not too bad as well. Mind you, their back line is getting paper thin. Sione Finau on one wing, Corey Allen's in the centres, and Terrell Sloan's back. Interesting, Penrith are looking at making a play for him just quietly.
Well, I'm going to look at the NRL tipping app here, mate, and go off this. And the Dragons have been given a 3% chance of winning, so I'm going to go with the Raiders.
Yeah, Raiders by how many?
Well, the button doesn't go up high enough on it.
Yeah. Well, it starts 10.5, which I think is pretty generous. If I was a punter, which I am, I'd be all over the Raiders.
Okay.
This is how far I'd go. If the Titans were playing the Raiders, I'd tip the Titans were playing the Dragons, I'd tip the Titans. So lock in the Raiders by about 30. Cowboys Storm. Guys, I think this is closer than what people think.
No, mate. Seriously. Are you right, or are you feeling okay? This could be. Did you not watch the Cowboys on the weekend?
Oh,
with
they're
their good players.
Yeah, they are a disgrace. You're not wrong.
Well, I don't know what the line is here, Molly, but I would be all over the Storm covering the line easily, and for that reason, I'm going to tip the line. Tip the Storm.
Yeah, they've got some big players missing, but then so do the Cowboys. So to me,
they've still got the halfback and the fullback. The Storm. That's all they need.
Yeah,
It's actually baffling how many Cowboys are in the Origin arena, isn't it?
Yeah, which shows one of Queensland's problems, and they've done well to level.
Not to mention, one's a hooker, one's a halfback, and one's the lock. So,
yeah, like they just got less players to pick from, and so they've done well to.
let me just change my tune. The Storm by about 30. Oh dear. We're on another absolute belter of a game. The Roosters versus the Tigers here.
So this is a quick one for me. I'm just going to use the NRL tipping app again. The Tigers have been given a solid 5% chance, so I'm going to tip the Roosters.
Oh yeah. This will be enough. This could be some of the biggest margins of the year.
If you're not sure what Molly's going to tip for this game, just go back and listen to the start of the podcast. You'll get the answer there.
Yeah. All right. This is probably the hardest one to tip. But then again, honestly, I can see Manly winning this by 30 as well. What do you guys think, Manly or the Rabbitohs? Because they don't have Latrell.
Mate, they don't have a half. They've got nothing.
They've got about 8 halves, but none of them are up to it. That Lewis died. I just can't understand what the hell he's doing there. He's number 22 or something.
Has he still not been picked?
No.
Well, Sullivan broke his leg and Cody Walker done his hemi.
Yeah, Cody's been named at number 21, so I don't know what's doing.
You know what? I don't think they can field a team. I think they've just had to name someone.
Yeah.
And Brandon Smith, interestingly, 22.
Yeah, he's been named as well.
Yeah, so I actually just read before we jumped on. He's going to play New South Wales Cup this week.
Right. Okay.
So I'll tip
that goes
Manly.
along with your theory of they just had to name someone.
Yeah, that's right. I'm surprised Bennett didn't name himself.
Well, yeah, by the looks of it, that's what they're doing. Tommy Talau's on the bench. That's interesting. Maybe they just need to name someone as well. Because I'm looking at their reserves and it's not the best either. Yeah, what do we think? Manly, mate.
Yeah.
This is what I mean. This is why we need to get away from these rounds during Origin. It's a joke. It's a joke.
I'll take a perfect round after getting misery in that last game last week and going for the Titans. Jeez.
Also, just to quickly before we finish on this, with the whole Origin games being played during Origin, it also comes down to who you play during that period, and that influences games massively. You know what I mean? Which can't happen, I don't think.
No. And obviously, who's on a bye, and who gets the free points?
100%.
Anyway, enough of that stuff.
That's rabbit hole material.
And let's get into Origin Game 3 next week. You beauty.
Yeah, good. See you later.